Jeffrey St. Rose. Welcome to Enter the Poetic, a contemplative space for illumination. Episode 2, Transcendence is Essential. The poems featured in this episode connect with the qualities of Pisces, such as spiritual sensitivity, empathy, as well as the ability to feel and navigate the shared waters of humanity. Ruled by Neptune, the sign of Pisces also carries an energy of transcendence and rising above the typical third-dimensional reality to connect with and exist in a higher, more elevated state of consciousness. We will begin with the first poem in my third book, which is all about water. This first poem sets the tone for the whole book, where the reader is taken through different experiences and interactions with water in its many expressions as the poems progress. Water possesses a consciousness of fluidity and connectedness. The third book is a rediscovery of that consciousness and a journey to reconnect with the emotional body. I will be featuring 6 poems from that book in this episode. From the sea. We have been hunting the sea 100 years for what has caused our existence, when the waves translated and froze the ocean into the spine, lifting us out, lifting us out. With the arrival of land, we lost the ability to swim, the indivisible curves, and started thinking in sharp lines and horizons. The deserts duned their answers. Moving with the sloth of rocks, we dried our bodies with solid sand. 100 years from the sea, we built our mines and castles because we could not stack the water or roll the oceans into a fortress. But always the weeping reminds us the shine of rain on our heads. We step into the liquid emerald of the beached Aegean, and some of the wonder returns. Our memories tethered to the coils, the 4 flows of the revolving Sargasso. Though hoarding its troves, the sea acquiesces to all dredging hands as we drag 100 husks of myths and monsters, all the mountains we hid under water because of what we destroyed that still haunts the voice, or what is too beautiful to be named that we are ashamed to see in our state so lost of ecstasy. We have been hunting the sea for 100 years, led on by the falling drops, causal and momentary ponds, the river's twinkling enigmas, eventually descending to the golden shores, praising the 100 years it has taken to get here. This poem begins with the lines, "We have been hunting the sea 100 years for what has caused our existence, when the waves translated and froze the ocean into the spine, lifting us out, lifting us out." The road to discover our initial source of creation has been a long one. Here the sea is a symbol for this undefined source, and a home where we can locate our first origins, as it has been said that humans have evolved from an aquatic species. The figurative image of the waves translating the frozen ocean into a spine alludes to this event. The spine has fluidity and allows movement. The poem is making a connection to the spine and the undulation of a wave. Although we are in physical solid bodies, they retain dynamic movement, as though we are a flesh and bone extension of the ocean. We have been lifted out by and from this prime source into a new way of being that is now on land, which has a very different reality, as indicated by the following lines. With the arrival of land, we lost the ability to swim the indivisible curves and started thinking in sharp lines and horizons. This passage is stating that we lost the skills to fluidly navigate with an easy grace and see our surroundings as an integrated whole. Instead, we began creating with angles and sharp lines, introducing corners and angular structures. After being in a more feminine existence, we are now adding the masculine to that in order to create balance. However, in exploring the masculine, it is also essential that we integrate the feminine as well. The indivisible curves is a reference to oneness, as water does not have defined lines that create separation. We have lost the ability to swim is written as its own line. Obviously, we have not lost the ability to swim and can always learn. It means more that we have lost the ability to move in such a way that we remember our connectedness to everything. Movement on land is different, slower. It can feel like the sloth of rocks, where motion is not as swift or seamless as it is in the water. The lines 100 years from the sea, we built our mines and castles because we could not stack the water or roll the oceans into a fortress, echo the idea that we are now creating solid structures with elements from the land, as we cannot stack the water into a castle or build a home out of the ocean. The lines also suggest that we are physically and mentally moving more and more away from the sea and our origins, to the extent where we are now more land creatures than water creatures, and are embodying a different consciousness than the one we had in the ocean. Yet there will always be signs that recall us to our prime fluidity, as shown with the lines, but always the weeping reminds us the shine of rain on our heads. Even though we now live on land, we are constantly reminded of water and its emotional components, so we don't lose touch with the natural flow. The shine of rain on our heads also suggests the light of divine inspiration flowing into the crown chakra as we receive from Source what we need in the moment. No matter where we go, we will always be reminded that we are all connected and are all an embodiment of divine source, as symbolized in this poem as the ocean. We step into the liquid emerald of the beached Aegean, and some of the wonder returns, our memories tethered to the coils. Every time we enter the sea or commune with Source, we are brought back into a different consciousness and experience, one that brings wonder and inspires the imagination. Water is a very connective element and expands our abilities to connect with different memories, realities, and lifetimes. The next passage in the poem speaks to this theme of memory connections, where we can also reclaim parts of ourselves that have been lost to the deeps, all the myths and monsters, the shadow sides of our unconscious behaviors that we hid, that still haunt us as we realized how disconnected from the divine we became here in this third dimension. And as the sea is open, it is ever available for us as a source to retrieve what we need to integrate in order to heal and move forward. In this sense, the sea acts as a mirror, keeping all of our reflections until we are ready to see them. Though hoarding its troves, the sea acquiesces to all dredging hands as we drag 100 husks of myths and monsters, all the mountains we hid under water because of what we destroyed that still haunts the voice, or what is too beautiful to be named that we are ashamed to see in our state so lost of ecstasy. Feeling too ashamed to see the beauty because of how far we have fallen from it is a hard experience, but one that brings light, as it shows there is another way, a higher way to be. Once the light comes in to show the miscreations of the dark, there can be feelings of shame, and oftentimes, in order to avoid feeling shame, we can deny the light and pretend it doesn't exist, or block it out, because acknowledging it would force us to see what we have unconsciously created and compel us to change, and change can be challenging. But also the light forces us to see our own divinity, and if we are not behaving in divine ways, we will feel the experience of that disconnection. This creates an opportunity to discover the learning, letting go of shame and choosing instead to embody a higher consciousness. I view the emotion of ecstasy as a kind of kinetic joy that inspires creative action. It is different than bliss, which feels more passive and requires a quiet state of surrendering. Ecstasy impassions effort. When we feel disconnected from our true passion and purpose, it is easier to fall into self-destructive patterns. In reconnecting with the feeling of divine ecstasy, we are compelled to create things that inspire beauty and love, things which elevate the soul. The poem ends with the following lines. We have been hunting the sea for 100 years, led on by the falling drops, causal and momentary ponds, the river's twinkling enigmas, eventually descending to the golden shores, praising the 100 years it has taken to get here. Our search for the sea, or source, or origin is, after all, worth it, and is cause for celebration and praise, as we honor the journey and all the lessons that have come forth to help us evolve. We have been compassionately led on by all our experiences into something even greater, eventually arriving at the golden shores and delighting in all the lifetimes we've had, which have made us who we are, and provided exactly what we needed for our soul's unique evolution. This next poem, The Nautilus Effect, revisits the theme of memory and history, reconnecting with the past in order to understand the present and create a more complete future. It also references the spiral, which is the geometric figure of expansion, such as the Fibonacci sequence, where, as the poem says, where it shines, the line will not cross itself, but expand into elaborate signs. The spiral continues to evolve out from its prime origin, never overlapping itself, but ever expanding into new territory, providing more experiences for advanced learning. This exponential expansion allows us to spin back to the beginning or flow further out. We can use the curved form of a spiral to connect to different realities and lifetimes, as everything is linked in oneness with the simple motion of the in-breath and the out-breath of creation. The Nautilus Effect. Our ribs are curved to the dolphin's jump. With broken coral and a whalebone, I tune the ground, trying to find my histories in the melted flows and flooded islands, splitting into irreversible rhythms. From the sound of Atlantis, still in the turtle shell, I have found the first road. The memories have sunk to my feet, so I walk to recall the bright spires and pillars of Poseidon. It's the spiral in the inner ear, like the unwinding nautilus, that lets us hear all the way back to the beginning and spins the music of the ocean closer. By knocking rocks, the silver-pocked knowledge of the fish will shoal. Where it shines, the line will not cross itself, but expand into elaborate signs. Sliding its mirrors together, the sea either conceals or reveals. The lines, from the sound of Atlantis, still in the turtle shell, I have found the first road, and the memories have sunk to my feet, so I walk to recall the bright spires and pillars of Poseidon, show how the past is still present and able to be accessed. Earth still echoes all its experiences in one form or another. We can follow the signs that are always there, guiding us to the information. It is like accessing the subconsciousness of Earth, where all the records are stored. All the experiences have left their marks that continue to exist and guide us. These lines are also about trusting our intuition and following the energy threads that are leading us on a great adventure to rediscover ourselves. We already have the tools we need: the broken coral and whalebone mentioned in the poem, the turtle shell that still holds the sound of Atlantis and our deep past, as well as the rocks with their silver-pocked knowledge that keep the geological histories. And we have the shape of the spiral in our physical bodies, similar to a nautilus. We are not separate from anything, but are forever connected in an integrated and intimate whole. It's the spiral in the inner ear, like the unwinding nautilus, that lets us hear all the way back to the beginning and spins the music of the ocean closer. These lines reference the exponential spiral I mentioned earlier, where the unwinding lines can also function as a way back to the past, as well as an unfurling into the future. We can go in either direction, seeking the information that will get us to the next step. Our ribs are curved to the dolphin's jump is another example of how we share similarities with other creatures. We are all beautiful variations of a vast creation. The poem ends on a mysterious note. Sliding its mirrors together, the sea either conceals or reveals. In this way, the sea is acting like a veil, able to conceal what isn't ready to emerge, or it can reveal what has long been forgotten that needs remembering. Whatever it shows us in the moment is what we need. Mermaids. I kick kelp tails and flip shells back to their mother. There is so much living that fills me with its will and unanswerable passions, since still I am searching for the original first language that could bring me fully into the world. I am not an enemy to the unnamed things, whether strangely amazing or difficult to believe. Once on this tough country I found a whale corpse which was extraordinary and haunting among the common cadavers of birds. For a moment I felt like I had just walked out of its eye to stare at this side of the dream and had arrived uncomplicated by time. Some days I see a sudden face come up from the sunless under, looking at me as though its looking were speech, saying what I needed but already reached by the simple cry of being alive. Near where the land tips into a slick oblivion, I am waiting for the slippery-finned ones who find the air unbearable. This poem, Mermaids, expands upon the idea of interacting with the natural world as a way of understanding ourselves at a deeper level and recognizing our connections with all things. It also alludes to what may be hidden in the sea, either in this or in another dimension. This poem continues the quest for personal and universal origins as portrayed in the lines, "Still I am searching for the original first language that could bring me fully into the world." The speaker is looking for some kind of universal first language that could be used to connect with everything and which has formed the basis of being. Even if that language is at odds with what he already knows, he is ready to receive, as it is evident he has already had many expanded experiences that have opened him to a greater awareness of the universe and otherworldly cosmic forces. I am not an enemy to the unnamed things, whether strangely amazing or difficult to believe. The first step is always to be open, not letting our belief systems keep us from an expanded awareness. The finding of the whale corpse is said to be extraordinary and haunting, as it is a tangible earthly form, but remarkable because it is unusual. The speaker is able to connect with this whale corpse and, for a moment, see the world as it might have been from the perspective of the whale, where its awareness is not complicated by time and rigid routines like those of humans. The speaker is feeling the freedom of the whale's existence and what it is like to be fully present in the now of the moment. Then the speaker reveals that he has seen something even more remarkable than a whale corpse and is waiting to see these creatures again. We know by the title of the poem that he is talking about mermaids, the slippery-finned ones who find the air unbearable. It doesn't matter if the speaker has really seen a mermaid or even a whale corpse, as they can also be viewed as metaphors and symbols for seeing into other realms or dimensions. The speaker has already felt a kinship with these creatures and has identified with them on some level, as these lines indicate. Some days I see a sudden face come up from the sunless under, looking at me as though its looking were speech, saying what I needed but already reached by the simple cry of being alive. The speaker has recognized his connection with the mermaid even though no words were exchanged, only a look that conveyed everything he was already experiencing, a look that mirrored what the speaker was feeling just by being alive and fully expressing that. A shared humanity has passed between them, even though they are a different species. This energy connection between them happens in a space of unconditional love, honoring the shared beauty of life as it is in all its miraculous forms, which is really that original first language the speaker was looking for all along. The energy exchanged has happened silently, with the pure feeling of acknowledging divinity in all life and connecting to it through that shared divinity. How did the sea come to be? 1. How did the sea come to be in our hands when we cried for eons that we did not have that power and could not let our lives be our own empires rather than the fates surrounding and giving us our names, our cages? 2. Whatever we shed, the water dissolves, but some shape of its having been will remain. The sea keeps what is given, and it cannot be returned. The sweat of our prince on the beach, in the surf, the body's oils of being. What is lost is taken and saved. We are known by the ocean more than we are known by ourselves. Something vital is shared, though we are not always granted its answers, whatever the sense of its presence that changes what we did not even hear that was there. We go to the sea to remember. We go to the sea to remember how to be free. 3. Atlas, drop the world. Let the ocean fall from your long shoulders. We are ready to carry it now, for the first time, without drowning. How did the sea come to be is written in 3 parts. Part 1 is about taking back our power and recognizing our strength. How did the sea come to be in our hands when we cried for eons that we did not have that power and could not let our lives be our own empires, rather than the fates surrounding and giving us our names, our cages? The image of holding the sea in the hands as it mirrors back our power to us is a metaphor saying that we are just as mighty as the ocean if we choose to be. We can direct our energy forces towards creating our own realities, working in harmony with the natural cycles, rather than letting external forces dictate who and how we should be. We can create our own empires instead of allowing others to limit and cage us or give us our identities. We have always had the power to create in our own ways. We just have to recognize that and call it in, using it as a positive force to forge our own paths. The second part is about letting go, releasing what no longer serves us, and embracing a new freedom. Whatever we shed, the water dissolves, but some shape of its having been will remain. The sea keeps what is given, and it cannot be returned. The sweat of our prince on the beach, in the surf, the body's oils of being. What is lost is taken and saved. These lines suggest that whatever is released will remain in some way, but in a different form that can be recycled and used by something else in a new way. Here, the sea is absorbing what is released and retaining an imprint of it. This imprint is energetic and holographic. Whatever is released also contains the lesson inherent in the release. Perhaps someone else with a similar issue stepping into the sea will connect with this imprint and the lesson contained within, which will provide that person with the awareness needed to let go. In this sense, the sea is again like the source, which keeps a record of everything and is always imparting the relevant information to help us heal and grow. There is also the sense that what has happened once will never happen again in the same way, as each experience is unique. Each person's oils of being are an energy signature specific to that person. Each lifetime is different, but we retain certain elements from each that make up our totality. Although time passes, bringing changes and new experiences, what has happened is saved in some way, as it has had its impact on the world and left its imprints. The second part finishes with the idea that the universe, source, the great wholeness, knows us better than we know ourselves, as we are still here in the third dimension, functioning with our limited memories and veils of forgetfulness. But our greater selves are given to us over time as we evolve. We are known by the ocean more than we are known by ourselves. Something vital is shared, though we are not always granted its answers. Whatever the sense of its presence that changes what we did not even hear that was there. We go to the sea to remember. We go to the sea to remember how to be free. Things often imperceptibly change. Energy exchanges can happen that we aren't even aware of that can change us, even though we don't understand in the moment how or why. We don't always need to know and just have to accept, as ultimately what we receive will help us be free so we can let go of the old and be open for whatever is next. The third part concludes the poem with, Atlas, drop the world. Let the ocean fall from your long shoulders. We are ready to carry it now, for the first time, without drowning. There is now a full acceptance of personal power and an acknowledgement that we can now carry and wield our own power without abusing it, getting overtaken by ego, or letting our own power destroy us. This comes with great responsibility and accountability. But through our learning experiences, we have come to a place where it is time for us to take back our power, rather than letting a small percentage of the population control us for their own gain. For too long, we have given our power away and then complained at the state of the world. We forgot it is up to us to create a better world, starting with ourselves, then extending that into our close relationships, then broadening into our communities and countries. No one is coming to save us. We have to save ourselves and be mature enough to recognize this in order to make the world the beautiful place we all envision. In the whale's belly. It was not dark in the whale's belly, or somehow I could see without light. I did not fight to escape, as suddenly I found I had no need. The calmness after being so thoroughly swallowed was what I noticed most. It was as if nothing had yet been created, and perhaps never would be. But stranger still, it didn't even matter, and there was no fear of either dying or not existing. I never wondered how I would ever get out. It was more a wish that I could stay. I had the sensation of both walking and floating at once. It was eerily marvelous. I discovered nothing that didn't already come from me. And when I understood more than I could comprehend, a cold force dragged me back to the land again. Being inside the whale's belly is a metaphor for inhabiting a transcendent space, one that is magical, where otherworldly sensations are available and experienced. This space is one where a different state of consciousness is achieved, one that is outside or above the normal waking consciousness. In this expanded state of consciousness, one is able to experience a fuller awareness of oneness and wonder. The poem describes the space as calm, neither light nor dark, where neither is present nor relevant, perhaps alluding to a space between the two, even suggesting that this space might have preceded both darkness and light, existing before either of them came to be, a neutral womb of sorts, containing pure presence and a sense of peaceful beingness, that is not needful of anything in order to fully exist in its own inherent wholeness. All worldly forms have dissolved, and so completely that there is nothing external to distract or focus upon. Thus the experience is entirely internal. Great attention is given to describing what the space feels like. It was as if nothing had yet been created, and perhaps never would be, and there was no fear of either dying or not existing. And I had the sensation of both walking and floating at once. It is as if the speaker is inhabiting this womb-like space that is ever present, a sort of timeless, liminal space between things that allows shifts in perspective and opportunities to see further within. As the poem progresses, we receive more information about this space. I discovered nothing that didn't already come from me. These lines suggest that the speaker is inhabiting his own consciousness and simultaneously the greater state of oneness, wherein one realizes there is no separation and everything is emerging from the same source. It is also a realization that the speaker is creating his own reality and is a part of the larger reality that is being created by the totality of souls comprising the wholeness, and that ultimately everything is a mirror wherein we can see ourselves more clearly. In this sense, everything is indeed coming from us, the larger oneness that is everything, as we are all working together on behalf of cosmic evolution. The making of water. Part of the rainbow has gone into making the ocean. The rainbow and ocean are kin, and shimmer with the same skin. Tumbling muscles move the water out across the distances under the moon's command. Water is built from the colors aqua and silver, which crest together and disappear into clear. As we drink, we release the body into being. Water is the blood of thought, the shape of shapelessness. The ocean flows inside our thinking. This is how thought crashes and touches everything. Waves have saved the world from drying into solid words. Waves have saved the world from shutting into utter dust. After eons of active thrashing, the ocean has shed its skeleton. Only the unrestricted moving remains. In this poem, the ocean is symbolized as a sort of corporeal form that has skin the same color as the rainbow and tumbling muscles that move its body. As we arrive at the end of the poem, the ocean is said to have shed its skeleton in order to be free and move in more limitless ways. After eons of active thrashing, the ocean has shed its skeleton. Only the unrestricted moving remains. This acquired freedom has come with great effort and active thrashing, which suggests a releasing of unneeded densities and physicality. It is as if the ocean itself has evolved its body over time. This parallels the first poem, but in a reverse way, as the poems move in opposite directions. In 100 Years from the Sea, the poem is about the evolution of humans from more of a fluid form to more of a restrictive, solidified form. Here, in this poem, the ocean is likened to a physical body that has divested itself from a prior solidity to exist in a fluid state. Evolution is not always linear. Sometimes evolution means inhabiting a physical form and moving into a slower dimensional reality in order to experience that for its particular lessons. And sometimes evolution is about transforming the physical into a higher vibrational state, as in an energy form or light body. Water is a connective force. This poem describes that in a few ways. One way is shown by the following lines. As we drink, we release the body into being. The action of drinking water is likened to a reconnection with beingness, which is free and fluid, not separated into disparate components. The idea of releasing the body into being by drinking water is a way of saying that we are ingesting a pure essence, a connective force that reestablishes our wholeness, so we can feel and embody the oneness that we are. Drinking water can be said to be a daily ritual of reconnecting with our inherent beingness. The other way the poem describes the connective force of water is by these lines. Water is the blood of thought, the shape of shapelessness. The ocean flows inside our thinking. This is how thought crashes and touches everything. The movement of water is similar to how our thoughts flow out into the world as conscious waveforms that touch everything, even though we cannot see them. Seen from this perspective, we realize even more how powerful our thoughts are in creating our reality, as our thought forms are like the crashing waves of an ocean. Waves have saved the world from drying into solid words. Waves have saved the world from shutting into utter dust. The motion of water keeps everything seamless and fluid, saving the world from drying out and becoming too rigid in feelings or beliefs. Water loosens us from old patterns so we can move in a synchronized way with the natural flow. Revisiting the final lines of this poem, after eons of active thrashing, the ocean has shed its skeleton, only the unrestricted moving remains. We have come full circle and are back at the beginning of our origins, where only the unrestricted moving remains. There is the sense here of a full embodiment of life and motion as we used to have when we inhabited the water. Our evolution onto land has ultimately led us back to the water. This is similar to how our souls continuously reincarnate into form and then release that form on our return to Source. Thank you for listening, and be free.